Thank you for being here today. My name is Lahari Chowtoori. I'm from AWS and I'm a technical program manager. Unfortunately, my co-speaker isn't here who did a lot of work to make this talk possible. So please bear with me for a while. So, okay, before we dive into our main topic, I have a quick question for you all. So, can we please have a quick show of hands if you have ever made a contribution to any open source project? Okay, can we please have those hands raised if you have made a contribution, anything beyond code, any other type of contribution? Okay, that's great. That clearly illustrates the topic that we are going to discuss today. We'll be discussing about the hidden heroes, the non-code contributors who make these open source communities thrive. So let's just dive into the topic. Over the past few months, we have had the privilege of interviewing 16 seasoned open source folks who have shaped open source through their non-code contributions. Their journey span from almost the beginning of the open source until today, which gave us a very unique perspective on how non-code contributions shape open source. Among these, some of them are documentation pioneers and community builders who grew projects from scratch to hundreds of thousands of members, and strategists and marketers who helped projects scale, and researchers who study about what makes these communities thrive. This talk wouldn't have been possible without these folks, so huge shout out to them. Okay. A successful and sustainable open source community will probably have more than code. It requires clear documentation, strong community engagement, research, metrics, marketing, communication, strategic planning, probably more than all of this, but it will take a lot of folks from different backgrounds to build such a healthy community. I have listed few non-code contributions here, but I'm sure there are more than these, but it will definitely take us more than 40 minutes to discuss about all of those, but we'll just dive into these for now. Documentation is often the first point of contact between the project and its users. It is very crucial for the adoption and as well as the usage. It is known for transforming the complex code into the usable tools. Marketing breaks the barriers between technical projects and their potential users. They translate the project language into something everybody can understand. They have the ability to speak to the folks who are not technical. And it's not just about the promotion, it's about the making technology accessible for everyone. Community building creates the environment where collaboration thrives. Probably from the organizing events to the communication, they build those communities where individual contributors can come and they build the user communities around them. Research often shapes the project direction. The researchers identify the user needs and also the opportunities for growing these projects and also analyzing the project health that makes these projects sustainable in the longer run. Policy and strategy work ensures project sustainability. This includes the governance structures, funding models, and also the long-term planning that keeps project healthy and growing, probably the things that we usually not think of. Each of these roles are essential for project success, and each requires skills that are beyond coding. I have few stories that I want to share from the interviews that we have conducted. And our research revealed documentation as a very powerful entry point. From Apache to Python, from read the docs to circuit Python, documentation repeatedly emerged as a foundation for the project success. Rich Bowen, who is in the room right now, clearly showed us that the documentation is much more than just writing. When he started, Apache's documentation was mostly in the code comments, But now it's a sophisticated system which is accessed by millions of users daily. So, and he also says that documentation isn't just for writing, it's also making the technology accessible for everyone who needs it. So, though he hasn't written a lot of code, he's a very respected maintainer in the Apache community now. Moving on to marketing, marketing has its own story in open source. Some of the marketing folks that we have interviewed mentioned that the best technology in the world would mean nothing if users can't find it or understand the value of it. They transformed how projects reach their audience, and it's not just through flashy advertising, but actually by building the bridges between the technical and the non-technical world, but also and making the technical capabilities of the project understandable for the real-world use cases. This is a story of community building at its finest. Picture this, a community of 100 users growing to 35,000. It was not actually because of the better code, but it was actually because of the better community management. One of the community builders that we have interviewed has created a community through structured onboarding programs and also mentorship programs, and also, more importantly, creating an environment where everybody felt that their contributions mattered, whether they are code or not. Research might sound very academic to open source community at some point, but one of the researchers that we have interviewed who worked with the scikit-learn has showed its practical impact to us. He studied funding models and also analyzed the community health and provided the data that shaped how projects made decisions for their long-term growth. His research didn't just involve the immediate problems, but it also created templates for the other projects to follow. Project leadership doesn't often come through the technical expertise. And our interviews revealed how policy experts guided the project governance. Policy work isn't just about creating rules, but it's also about creating environments through strategy where communities can thrive long term. One of the people that we have interviewed who had theater background have become a board member at Mastodon just by creating those governance structures about how people could actually collaborate and contribute to the projects who didn't have a coding background at all. We have identified few key challenges that most of the non-technical contributors consistently face in the open source spaces. First of all, it's the tool barrier. Open source workflows are often built around tools like GitHub, which are mostly designed for developers. Even creating a simple documentation update requires navigating these technical systems. And often there is not a documentation for somebody who's not from a technical background to actually learn how to go through these Git processes. Second is the recognition gap. While code contributions have clear metrics and visibility, non-technical work often goes unnoticed or undervalued. This creates an unintended hierarchy in many projects. Trust building takes longer for non-technical contributors. Without visible code commits, establishing credibility requires a consistent presence and commitment over time for them. Integration with technical teams presents another key hurdle. Different vocabularies, workflows, and priorities can create communication gaps between technical and the non-technical contributors. Finally, last but not the least, cultural barriers do actually exist in the open source communities. Many open source projects have deeply ingrained technical cultures that can unintentionally exclude non-technical contributors and their perspectives at the same time. We do have few success stories. Despite these challenges, most of the non-code contributors have made significant impact in the open source communities through their non-code contributions, and also the projects that have embraced these non-technical contributions. I would like to highlight Rich Bowen again because since he's in the room. His journey from documentation writer to Apache maintainer changed how the projects approaches the accessibility now. But it's more than just one story. His work, like I've already mentioned, has created a template for the other projects too. And the impact of community building is perfectly illustrated through Courtney's work with the Circuit Python. As I said, imagine growing a community from 100 members to 35,000 members, which doesn't usually take a single day or just through better coding. It's actually through a very strong onboarding procedures and also mentorship programs, and also making sure that you're recognizing the non-code contributors within your project. Yuego, who built the Apollo community from scratch to over 100,000 members, demonstrated the impact of focused community engagement in the open source. And Eric from Read the Docs, who initially started with reading the docs when he wanted to learn about a project, eventually started working with the read the docs, and now he translates several projects into the document. He translates the documentation of several projects so that it will be accessible for millions of people across the world. Most of these success stories share common elements: clear contribution paths, recognition systems that value diverse contributions, and integration of non-technical perspectives in the leadership. But perhaps most importantly, they show that when projects invest in the non-technical roles, the entire community benefits. One of the statements that I would actually like to present to all of you is from Brian Granger from the Jupiter, who stated that code actually started them, but it was actually the community that made them stronger and also well known in the open source. Let's talk about few practical steps that you could actually can take to get involved and make an impact in the open source, even if you're not a coder. How can you actually get started if you're a non-code contributor? Look for projects that have clear non-code contribution paths, and also look for a project that actually resonates with you, and look at their README document. Nothing more than that. Just look at their README doc. If they have explicitly stated the ask, and also if it actually it is something that the skill that you could actually provide them with, and if these both align, then just go with that project. That's the least thing any open source project can do. If they want something from you, they have to state that very explicitly in their README doc. One of the interview candidates have actually attributed the Fedora success to creating very clear access points for artists, writers, designers, and community organizers. Documentation or community support is often a great entry point. Many projects desperately need help making their tools more understandable or assisting new users. Don't underestimate the value of attending community meetings. It's where you learn the project's pulse and also opportunities to contribute as well. And jump into discussions, whether it's on forums or chat lists or email listings, wherever it is possible. Your questions and insights are extremely valuable to the projects, more than you think. There are some key growth tactics that our interviews have revealed. To build your presence, consistency is key. Regular participation, even in small ways, builds trust and recognition. That's the most important thing in the open source community. You have to build trust. People should be able to rely on you. So show up whenever you can, even if it is a very simple task, a task that all others actually decide to neglect, and it is still just lying there. Just show up, do it. Maybe people might not realize the benefit of that, but at some point, people will realize the work that you have done. Look for opportunities to collaborate across different parts of the project. This broadens your impact on the project and also the understanding of the project. If you can get involved in organizing community events, it's a fantastic way to create value and connect with others. I don't think I have to emphasize on this more because we are all at a conference. The ability to network with people across different organizations and projects is clearly visible to all of us here. And always be ready to share your knowledge, whether it's through writing, mentoring, or answering questions. Your expertise always matters more than what you think. So how can you create your own path? As you grow, seek out projects that truly value diverse contributions. Look for communities where non-code work is actively recognized and celebrated. Build relationships across different teams within the project. These connections you make can open the doors to unique opportunities for you. Most importantly, document your impact. Keep track of your contributions, the problems you have solved, the improvements you have made. This isn't just for others, it'll actually help you to see the contributions that you have made and also see your growth over the time. Finally, share your journey by talking about your experiences. You're not just building your reputation, but you're actually laying out path for the people that are coming into the open source, and also people who are not confident enough to contribute because they think that their non-code contributions are not valuable enough to open source communities. These are a few of the action items that we have identified. I would say the successful communities will not be built by just the projects or the individuals. It's actually the responsibility of all of us. It's the responsibility of the projects as well as the contributors and also the community, which includes all of us. So I would like to call out few action items for the projects who are maintainers or contributors or whoever is very active. And you have the power to shape how non-code contributors engage with your community. Start by creating very clear non-code contribution paths. Make them as visible as possible and document them as you would for your coding guidelines. Establish recognition systems that value all type of contributions. Remember, the person who is doing your documentation is making it possible for everybody else to use your project. And just by saying a thank you via email or even saying it in person might not mean a lot for you, but it would possibly leave a strong impact on the other person. I heard from somebody who used to do this manually, send postcards to people to just say thank you for any new contribution that they receive for their project, which is something people would always preserve for their lifetime. So do it when you can, or say just thank you when you see them in person at the conferences. Create welcoming communities. This means having structured onboarding programs, mentorship programs, communication channels, and explicit support for non-code contributors. And when you have the opportunity to be at these type of conferences, try to network with people outside of your project. Mentorship doesn't mean that you have to find mentors within your program or within your project. It is highly possible for you to find people across different open source projects as well as different communities. And there are a lot of people willing to do that mentorship for you. Help newcomers find their place and grow within your community. Make it possible for people to ask you questions and be more welcoming. And coming to contributors, start by choosing your contribution area. Look at your skills, whether it is writing, mentoring, marketing, or community building, and find the projects where it aligns with your needs. Look for communities that welcome non-code contributions. The best projects would have already explicitly mentioned about this in their guidelines and also as well as in their documentation. Remember, small and consistent contributions often have more impact than one-time big efforts. Build relationships within the community as you contribute and make it visible for people to see. When it comes to communities, it's not just the projects or the individuals, it's the responsibility of all of us. So our role is very crucial in bridging the technical and the non-technical divide. Create structured programs that support all types of contributors and celebrate diverse contributions publicly. Make it known that code isn't the only valuable input to your project. The other contributions are celebrated in the same grander way as you do it for your code. Support new contributors regardless of how they choose to contribute. If somebody is showing up to contribute, that means you have more manpower for your project. So just don't let them go away and don't make them feel that you're not welcoming enough. Remember, today's documentation writer might be tomorrow your project's leader. So the future of open source depends on all of us. So whether you're a project maintainer, a potential contributor, or part of the broader community, we all have the power to make that difference. It's not just one person's responsibility. So let's work together to ensure that open source truly benefits from all the talents our community has to offer. I think that should be all.